Hello and welcome to India Post Live, India's first live and interactive news conversation web TV. I am Prachi Jatanya. Exit polls are indicating a clean sweep in Tamil Nadu for Jayalalitha, whereas they are saying that BJP's presence in Tamil Nadu is only an illusion. We'll try and get more perspective. The state focus for this conversation is Tamil Nadu, and to give us more insight in the studio we have Ajit Pillai, senior journalist, joining us. Also Srinivasan Ramani, senior assistant editor of the Economic and Political Weekly. From Chennai, we have some very special guests, Mr. G.C. Shekhar, who is the associate editor of the Telegraph. We'll also have more guests joining us from Chennai to give their perspective and views on this topic. I'll bring in Mr. Ajit Pillai. In fact, the post-poll survey by the NES, the findings seem to indicate for the 20 Lok Sabha seats that the AIA-DMK, with its vote share in 2009 elections, only 22%, whereas they've come up almost to 39%. So a 10% increase for the AIA-DMK, whereas the Congress getting only 9% and the DMK plus, which includes the DMK, the VCK, the MMK, IUML and the PT, getting about 26% of the vote share. What are your first thoughts in the indications with this survey findings?
Well, the survey seems to point to a sweep by the AIDMK or a very good performance. But I would rather be skeptical because some of these figures which are shown seem to be a little exaggerated. Maybe, perhaps, Jayalalitha may not run away with it. And the kind of poll results, exit poll results which have been shown on television also seems to be slightly warped. In that, this time round, AIDMK is going alone. It has absolutely no allies. It has, said that Jayalalitha has possibly decided that she is going to go alone and do very well. And she did tie up with the left parties in the initial stages. Then suddenly she withdrew. Then she sort of blacked out all the other regional forces like the PMK. And she's just all alone. So she may not, though she is very popular, one must admit that, but may not get those kind of seats which are being shown in the surveys.
Mr. Srinivasan, your take, do you feel that one needs to take a very cautious approach in terms of the findings of these exit polls for Tamil Nadu?
Yeah, that said, I do agree that one has to actually not take the exit polls at face value because there are a number of methodological problems with exit polls itself. But having said that, just to reiterate Ajit's point, the AIADMK was supposed to perform relatively well in these elections because it had, the party has a very positive image. It has been in power for the last 2 to 3 years and it has implemented a number of welfare measures. And the expectation was that the ADMK would generally sweep the elections. But in Tamil Nadu, the electoral logic has always been that whichever party is in power always manages to do well in a coalition and not necessarily alone.
Exactly.
And I think the AIADMK made a tactical error by not aligning with other parties, particularly the left parties who, despite being a minor player in Tamil Nadu, have pockets of support across the state. They have, and those pockets of support are not just concentrated pockets of support, but spread out basis across the state. And I think the ADMK made a tactical error, and this gave the DMK to rise.
Use it to its advantage.
Yeah, it rose as a in the last minute. It made a significant rise, and I think the DMK would manage to win a substantial number. It will finish second, but it will still manage to win a substantial number of seats.
Right. I'll bring in Mr. G.C. Shekhar at this point, sir. Your thoughts in the poll survey, exit poll findings. What are the feelers you are getting from the ground, and would you say that AIA-DMK would get a clean sweep this time around?
I would call it a clean sweep. They'll get somewhere around 30 because the DMK has put some strong candidates in certain constituencies. They are supposed to do well. Of course, DMK may win around 5 to 6. Then the BJP front also has some strong candidates like Vaiko, Andumani Ramadas, and then you have the BJP State Secretary, Pon Radhakrishnan from Kanyakumari. And then Coimbatore has been a very strong seat for the BJP. So these seats are the winnable seats for the NDA. So Jayalalitha will definitely will finish first by a long distance, and the BJP and the NDA and the DMK will fight for the second spot. That is the present reading, and a local exit poll done by a local Tamil TV channel, Tandi TV. It also confirmed virtually this. Of course, there were some close fights. There existed around 7 constituencies which were too close to call. So we may get to know the results only on the 16th. So till now, I think Jayalalitha has had I think Jayalalitha is fully justified in going it alone. She calculated that with the two fronts, the DMK front and the NDA, the anti-NMK votes are anyway going to get split. So it will help her, and it appears to have helped her.
Right. In terms of, I'll bring in Mr. Prem Shankar, who is the head of content in Delta Forecast, also joining us from Chennai. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Shankar. Your first, first few thoughts and what the panelists are talking in terms of AIA DMK going it alone. Was that a good move then?
Yeah, see, I don't differ with most of the comments that the panelists made. They seem to be bang on as far as analyzing your survey results are concerned. But one factor which I think that might make a small difference is the DMK factor. What Stalin has done. I had the opportunity to see what he was doing on the ground. Stalin is looking at this as a trial run for 2016 assembly election, and he has been nominated as the heir apparent, which is an obvious heir apparent for Karnataka after this. There was the Aragari factor, which people thought might go against the DMK and stuff like that. Nothing of that sort happened. In fact, they wound up their campaign at Madurai with a roaring response. So that's that factor. How much it's going to dampen the kind of numbers that we're looking at is going to be a huge denting factor, or is it just going to be, let's say, about 7 to 10 seats for the DMK? So I completely agree with most of the panelists who say that DMK will finish second. But in a sense, to look at what TC said, where she might be, where AIDMK may be a far first, there, I don't know. There might be some surprise.
In terms of looking at the younger voters this time, it seems that DMK definitely has benefited with the 18 to 25 age group. As per the data with the NES findings, 34% of the young voters in fact indicated that they would have voted for the DMK plus, whereas the AIA DMK definitely got an upper edge with the 35 to 45 plus age group. Mr. Pillai, do you think that would also have made a difference in the vote share for both these big players?
If the findings are correct, I would say yes. But I have my own, I'm very skeptical about opinion polls. I have dealt with pollsters. I'm not painting everybody or tarring everybody with the same brush, but I have dealt with pollsters while I was in Outlook over a few elections. And I found that a lot of the results are rather misleading. Misleading for various factors, maybe methodology. I found pollsters who want to suss out what the client, namely the paper publication, wants, and then give out figures. And I think Outlook has burnt its fingers several times because of that, and then I think we decided we shouldn't go for polls, because in 2004, contrary to all the reportage which was coming in, which was cut, which was edited out, because the polls showed that 320. So when it comes to these figures, I do not know why young voters should drift towards the DMK, unless they're very happy with D. Raja giving them cell phones. A Raja, so I made a mistake. Or some other factor, but I have not been able to sense that. Maybe the polls are right, maybe I'm wrong, but I couldn't sense that there's a sudden attraction towards the DMK. And if that is so, was that the attraction towards Stalin? Or was their campaign so effective? I'm not very clear about that.
In terms of regional factors in the region areas, AIA DMK seems to have had a close contest as per the survey in the north with the DMK, whereas in the west, AIA DMK is clearly way ahead in the race. In terms of those factors, if you could shed some light in your experience that you've gathered.
Well, it all depends upon the level of campaigning, the kind of candidates fielded, and in the build up to the elections, the kind of various factors which came into play. And I think somewhere along the line, the AIDMK in certain parts of Tamil Nadu showed excessive confidence
Yes.
in the early part and felt that they could just stomp over. There was no, no competition. So I think in certain parts of the state, the DMK may have clawed back. It possibly did. And that is through campaigning and not through the entire build-up. Also, there are certain factors. Outside of Madras city, there's a huge power crisis. 12 hours of power cuts. I don't think the state government is directly responsible for that, but people always blame the government of the day.
Right. I'll just bring in Mr. Cho Ramaswamy, Senior Deputy Editor of the Frontline, also joining us from Chennai. Mr. Cho Ramaswamy, if you can hear us. Okay, I believe we've lost him, but I'll bring in Mr. G.C. Shekhar at this point. Do you believe that the 2G scam and what happened with Kanni Mori, the charges against her, also seem to have given the AIA, DMK and Jayalalitha an edge?
Let me butt in with a correction. It is R.K. Radhakrishnan of the Hindu, not Joe Ramaswamy. Joe Ramaswamy is the editor of the Clerk.
Okay.
Please get it right. I can see Radhakrishnan smiling there. No, I don't think the charge sheet against Kanimuri had anything to do with this. I think the charge sheet came only after the 24th, April 24th, when elections were completed in Tamil Nadu. So I don't think that has anything to do with it. But even the 2G factor had sort of tapered down. The 2G scam played itself out in the 2011 Assembly election. This time, I don't think it became a very major issue, except in Nilgiris where A. Raja contested.
Right. Okay. I'll just bring in Mr. Radhakrishnan. Apologies again. There seems to be a coordination error here. I apologize on behalf of my team, sir, but welcome to India Post Live, to the conversation. Your first thoughts in terms of the exit poll findings. What are the feelers you are getting from your part of Chennai, and what is the first indication that you'd like to share with us?
See, very clearly, I think that the ADMK is way ahead of the rest of the crowd in these elections. Having said that, I have to add that, as one of the panelists was saying, that the initial problems that Jayalalitha created for herself, like throwing the CPIM out and the CPI out of her alliance, has really affected our chances, at least in a few constituencies. Now, having said that, I have to also say that the DMK's candidate selections, which was completely bonkers, has also helped the ADMK in many ways than one. And the DMK's insistence that it will not go with the Congress into these elections have also helped a great deal. And I think, all in all, I think everybody seems to have played it wrong in the sense that the DMK could have easily have gone with the Congress, and they would have been at least 5-6 seats more very easily. And if the ADMK had just kept the left parties with it, it would have been easily 30 plus. And that is where we stand. I do not see anything majorly wrong with the exit polls, barring the fact that in Tamil Nadu they always got it wrong. I mean, when I saw the exit polls, that was the only feeling. Oh God.
So should we then take these findings with a bucket of salt?
No, I guess the feeling that we largely share, but I wouldn't really know what a fifth of the electorate, which is the youth, have decided in these elections. And as you would know, in Tamil Nadu, it has never seen this kind of a combination coming up in an election. Like, you always had an ADMK combined, you always had a DMK combined, and nothing really much more than that. But these elections, we've had at least 3 combinations which may not be equally powerful. ADMK is slightly more powerful than the rest, DMK is slightly less powerful, and then you have the BJP, which is in the third place, and then the Congress. So which is equally means that the anti-incumbency votes necessarily go in favor of the BJP, the Congress, and it's getting to be really impossible to say at this point of time where it has gone. Even senior politicians that I speak to, I just tweeted on that as well, are absolutely unclear of where these votes have gone, and if actually that rupees 200 that one party paid will actually make a difference at the end of the day.
Right. Very important point that he made, Mr. Ramani. Yes.
Yeah, two things. Number one, you talked about youth and region as factors in determining where the vote has gone. I think this youth factor is overplayed. I mean, this is just a random finding that the DMK is doing slightly better than the ADMK.
Right.
But the regional factor is important for two reasons. Number one, the BJP's alliance. I mean, it has made it has an alliance with the PMK and the MDMK, and the PMK has pockets of support in northern Tamil Nadu among the 1 year belt, and that has certainly added to the BJP's advantage. It won't necessarily translate to seats, but it will definitely translate to a substantial vote share to some extent.
Right.
Secondly, in parts of western Tamil Nadu,
Yes.
where the Kongu belt, for example,
Yes.
there has been this rise of this new identitarian party, the Kongu Nadu party, for example, which has pledged its support to the BJP as well. So to that extent, I think the BJP could gain in places where it has traditionally had no support base at all, and that could possibly show this. Show them in better light.
So then should we assume that the Modi factor being illusionary in Tamil Nadu really isn't something that we should be
Not necessarily.
making?
There has always been a small space for for support outside the Dravidian parties. That space was occupied with the DMDK previously,
Yes.
and to some extent the Congress and other parties also used to have that space, but but they were never utilized because they were in alliance with either of the Dravidian parties. So that space now I think has expanded to an extent because of the Modi campaign. So I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying that the Modi campaign has to be is illusionary. It has not made the same impact as it has made in other states.
Right.
But what the BJP has done cleverly is to stitch up some kind of a caste and regional alliance, which would keep it in good stead and possibly earn it a seat or two.
Right. If I could just ask my team to put out the graphics of the women voters, men versus women, and how the AIA, DMK and the DMK seem to have worked it out for their advantage. The gender vote share, the men male percentage vote for the AIA DMK is 38%, whereas for the DMK plus is 27%. And for the BJP and its alliances, 16%, for the Congress 10%, whereas the women vote share for the AIADMK is a 41%, 24% for the DMK plus, and vote share for the BJP being about 15%. So not a big gap between the male and female ratio for the BJP, whereas for the Congress it's about 8%. Could you shed some light, Mr. Shekhar, in terms of the gender vote share? Are women voters also largely getting a bigger say in voting for J. Jayalalitha?
Traditionally, ADMK enjoyed the support of women voters right from India's days, and that continues till today. And Jayalalitha being a strong women leader, and also the fact that she has rolled out a lot of welfare measures, that has also helped the ADMK consolidate the women vote. That has helped. Of course, the DMK has limited vote base. That's it. And somebody was talking about. You were saying that there was not a Modi factor. Actually, there was a Modi factor. In fact, I could sense it in certain cities and towns. In fact, the BJP's traditional vote share is around 2%. In fact, the Modi factor brought in an extra 10% for the BJP. That is the reading that the other parties have also admitted that there is a Modi factor that is working. What the BJP needed was it needed to maximize this vote share with the support of other parties like Vaiku's MDMK, Vijay Khan's DMDK, and Ramaphosa's PMK. So when these parties bring in their vote share, they were looking at a vote share of around about 20 to 25%. And then in certain places where the constituencies, where the candidates are stronger, the BJP front felt that they had a chance to win. They had a chance to edge out the ADMK and DMK. That is likely to happen in around 3-4 constituencies. I still feel it will happen. So the women vote, as far as the women vote is concerned, it is a given that most of them support the ADMK. So the finding is not much of a surprise.
Right. Very interestingly, Mr. Shankar, what about the caste and community factor? Our guests in the studio are talking about how caste dynamics also seem to have played a role, and the indications as per exit polls, especially the one that we are referring to, the NES survey, does give upper caste where the DMK seems to be leading, whereas with the the 1 year cast, the AIA DMK seems to have had an advantage. Even with the OBCs and the Dalits, DMK seems to have a close contest with the AIA DMK. What is your perspective on that?
Prachi, caste factor has always been a very definitive thing as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. If you look at the caste-based parties, for example, if you look at PMK, 1 year, they're even a saying that 1 year vote, 1 year kill. If you think that a 1 year vote doesn't vote anybody else, but it goes to PMK. So there are definitive caste factors that have stayed for which parties have kind of pocketed those votes, and there's not been even spillage of votes there. But as far as when you look at it broadly as upper caste and lower caste, I think this time that's going to take a beating, because that definitiveness, that kind of, if you look at it a very general way, that kind of compartmentalization is not visible this time around. Especially because like what RK and GC was saying, and especially RK when he was talking about how this new combination has kind of thrown everybody off here. That is going to play a spoil sport as far as the psychologists or people who have been, kind of putting all this into a compartment so long. I think they're all going to get it wrong there.
Very nice. Very good to know that. The PM's choice, we have a graphic plate coming up. The Prime Ministerial choice, for the first time, Jayalalitha seems to be in the lead again. Of course, her aspirations to be in the race for Prime Minister, very well known. The 2014 post-poll survey is giving 16% of the vote share to J. Jayalalitha. You can see it on our screens. Narendra Modi getting a close second, 15%, whereas he seemed to have had an advantage in the earlier months. In January, in March, when the survey was conducted, Narendra Modi had 24% and Jayalalitha only 17%. And by then, by the time the voting was over the phase, they were a close neck to neck, whereas Karunanidhi getting about 6% and Rahul Gandhi 7%. A lot of people could not really say that who would they prefer as the next prime ministerial choice. About 40% preferred not to answer this question in the survey. So a very interesting point here, Mr. Pillai. Would you like to share your thoughts on it?
I think, Jayalalitha carries her personality. It's always been like that. Women vote for her. And her popularity is there. It's a certain equity, political equity she does have, and one has to admit that. But as far as, again, few months ago I read somebody written a column in the business line which said that this is a presidential kind of election. It really isn't. So Modi may have slipped because people are bothered about, despite it being a Lok Sabha poll, they're bothered about local issues. And, then, and the Congress party, for example, Rahul Gandhi scored so low because the Congress party has been in a shambles in Tamil Nadu. It has not been able to forge any kind of alliance. And the campaigning has been, rather slipshod, and the local unit has not stood together. But as far as Jayalalitha is concerned, she did campaign vigorously. She's got a personality, and she's always
been able to take that
yes,
to her advantage.
she has been. Yeah, she has.
If you could also share, in a run-up to her campaign, Jayalalitha, most often was able to use the Sri Lankan Tamil issue and drum it up to get more of attention from the vote bank. Do you think that's where the DMK seems to have lost out at all?
No, I think what happened. If you look back, Jayalalitha was not pro Sri Lankan Tamils in the past.
True.
But she has just revised her position for convenience.
Right.
But you should also take into account the fact that the Dravidian ideology, as it were, which was being pursued by both DMK and AIDMK, which made it a kind of a bipolar situation in Tamil Nadu, that has kind of dissipated. And I don't think you can drum up the Tamil issue, but she did using her personality more than the issue.
The issue.
Yeah,
yes.
I suppose.
Mr. Ramani will also bring in your views. We'll play the graphics here. When asked about the Sri Lankan Tamil issue, most agreed it was an important election issue. About 40% agreed with it as a political issue, an election issue, whereas 24% disagreed it being an election issue at all, and 36% felt that they did not have a particular opinion on it. Another graphic that we have in connection to this is, did AIM DMK seem to be having raised the Sri Lankan Tamil issue more than any other party in its run up to the campaigning? About 24% of the respondents believe that they did raise the issue, like Mr. Pillai has pointed out, more not necessarily it was a political ploy possibly or a strategy to use it, whereas the DMK was able, 16% felt that the DMK used it as an election issue, whereas about 9% felt the other parties, the smaller regional players, did a more convincing job of using the Sri Lankan Tamil issue. I'll bring in Mr. Radhakrishnan on this point. Sir, if you've been listening to the various opinions and views that are being exchanged, what would you have to say on the Sri Lankan Tamil issue? Was it at all an election issue?
Sri Lankan issue has not, been in the forefront only because all the parties have been on the same side of the issue, and hence it did not really make political sense to bring up the issue because everybody wanted a homeland for the Tamils, everybody wanted Rajpakse to be pulled up for war crimes, everybody wanted all the Sinhalas to be killed. So that has been the stated position of all Tamil parties in Tamil Nadu. Hence, it didn't make sense to make it an election issue. It became an election issue this time around because of the various factors like fishermen getting arrested and Rajpaksa being put to, again dragged hauled out the coals in Geneva and so forth. But I really don't know where 40% of your respondents say that Sri Lankan Tamil issue is a major issue in this election, because I'm very sure that GC and Prem will agree with me that it has, if anything, a very, very marginal impact in Tamil Nadu. I don't see Tamils voting merely because some other Tamils somewhere are getting killed, and that is something that we all believe. We have seen it on the ground as well. It has not been an issue when Tamils were being killed in 2009, which was the most major elections. In January of 2009, when hordes of Tamils were being killed, when LTT leadership was making desperate pleas to Tamil leadership and also to New Delhi. In fact, Chidambaram and the others, there are absolutely no response in Tamil Nadu. 2009 elections, those Lok Sabha elections, in fact, the DMK won large numbers, despite the fact that it was in power at the center and did nothing to stop the genocide that was going on in Sri Lanka.
Right. Mr. Ramani, you wanted to share.
Three quick points. Number one, if the question has been properly asked, to the electorate, are you bothered about the Sri Lankan issue? Yes, 40% of the people would have been bothered by even more than that would have been bothered by the Sri Lankan issue. And the next question, does it determine your electoral choice? I think that would have been a difficult thing to say, as Radhakrishnan points out, that there is not much of a difference between the various parties, except for the fact that the Congress was severely affected.
Exactly.
I think the Congress was identified with the fact that when the massacres and the bombing campaigns were happening in Kilinochchi and Vanni, the Indian government was tacitly approving of what was going on, providing logistical help to the Sri Lankan government, and the Congress felt the brunt of it. Coming to an earlier point, the fact that Jayalalitha seems to be doing better on the question of who should be the Prime Minister, that says something about Tamil Nadu politics, which is not generally explored well in the commentariat. What it says is that people talk about the Gujarat model, people talk about the Bihar model and so on, but there is something about the resilience of the Tamil Nadu model. Why is it that these two Dravidian parties are alternating again and again? That's because these parties have managed to set up a particular form of governance which emphasizes welfare, which emphasizes patronage. There is corruption, there are other problems with this, with the form of governance that the Dravidian parties engage in, but all indicators, economic indicators, show that the state of Tamil Nadu and Kerala are far superior in terms of both in growth numbers as well as in terms of institution of welfare measures.
Right.
So, and that is the reason why these parties have such a resilience, and that is the reason why someone like Jayalalitha, who is only a regional player, doesn't have any say outside Tamil Nadu, he is seen as a better prime ministerial candidate, and people actually think that there is a possibility of perhaps a third front government which she could head, and that's the reason why she is doing better than even someone like Narendra Modi.
Right. One final few thoughts from Mr. G.C. Shekhar and Prem Shankar. Mr. Shekhar, please go ahead. We'll have to take this conversation onto our social media page. But one final comment: what are the top 3 election issues then, which were priority for the electorate this time around in Tamil Nadu?
Jayalalitha sought votes saying that voting for the next ADMK substantially will help the ADMK be part of the next central government, and just which will help her to get by demand and fight for Tamil Nadu's rights and projects for Tamil Nadu. So that is the main that was the main campaign theme of Jayalalitha. The DMK per se didn't have a campaign theme. In fact, it was attacking the ADMK performance in the last 3 years. It appeared the DMK's campaign theme sounded more like an assembly election rather than a Lok Sabha election. Whereas the NDA front, of course, they projected the Modi factor. They said that Modi would make the ideal prime minister who will ensure all-round development in Tamil Nadu, just as it did in Gujarat. So these are the three major campaign issues. But what could if the exit polls in the other exit polls that have come in the last 2 days show that the NDA gets its own majority, then Jayalalitha will have 30 MPs and no role to play in central politics. Similarly, Karnataka for the first time since 1996, since 1999, will again have no role to play in central politics. So that it throws up a very funny situation where the two major prevailing parties will be bystanders, whereas smaller parties like Vaiko's NDMK and EMK will be partners in the central government. So we are looking at a very intriguing situation if what the opinion polls suggestion really come true.
Very intriguing situation. In fact, Mr. Prem Shankar, your last thoughts before we try and wrap up the show?
So finally, Rashid, it all boils down to how this is going to, pan out to the common man, the man on the street. And I think what it really is that Jayalalitha will wield some clout as far as the center is concerned. Then both Congress and Congress are obviously out of the race now. With this Indian government, they already have announced 100 modern cities and things like the satellite towns. I mean, let's hope that at least 2030 comes from that, and there is something that needs to come. That's usually what is going to happen. Otherwise, if you're looking at the PMA at some point of time, extending their support to the hatch, where does that leave the one question that generally probably thinking about. So I think eventually it boils down to who's going to bring in some kind of development, legacy, action.
Okay, right.
Various sectors, but probably more development not going to be.
Okay, Mr. Radhakrishnan, we really have to wrap that up. One final comment. Do you agree with what Mr. G.C. Shekhar did say, that smaller regional players will have a better say in the national political scenario this time around from Tamil Nadu?
It appears so, unless there is a huge deficit in numbers on the part of the BJP. And I'm very amused that Ms. Jayalalitha is the choice for the Prime Minister. I think, as somebody with a serious IT income tax case and a disproportionate asset case pending against her, on which verdicts are due very shortly, if it ever happens, that is a much better choice than somebody accused of a carnage. I think that should be the choice, and I would any day pick Jayalalitha over Modi.
Great. On that note, I will have to thank our guests as well. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, the tussle between the AIA-DMK and the DMK. Will that give a bigger advantage to the smaller regional players that seem to have tied up with the BJP? And does the Modi factor really will have an impact and will actually turn into seat share and vote share for the BJP in Tamil Nadu? We'll have to wait and watch till the May 16th. Thank you so much, all of you, for very interesting insights joining us in the studio here. Mr. Ajit Pillai and Mr. Venkat Ramani for giving out time. Do take this conversation forward, all of you guests from Chennai, with your political analysis and views. Give feedback to our viewers. Also, viewers can participate in the Hum Bole contest, where you can predict and have your own exit poll and try and give numbers and revise those numbers using hashtag Hum Bole on our Twitter handle at India Post Live and on our website indiapostlive.com, and you can win grand prizes including a sedan car. So participate and give your choice and exit poll predictions on our website. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us and watching India Post Live. Stay tuned for more conversations.